All right, a very good morning to you. It's good to see you on this Wednesday morning. And first of all, I hope that you've been keeping safe, during my time away. And of course, a special thanks to Olive and Zainab Ismail for holding fort for me. And despite everything that is happening around us, I hope that you've been keeping well and safe, even as we again anticipate the public protest that is scheduled to happen today, tomorrow, and on Friday. So again, regardless, please keep safe. If you do not have to come to town, please stay home and stay safe. But all the same, it's good to see you this morning. Welcome to the show. My name is Winnie Lubembe. And of course, today we want to talk about something that is very important, that sometimes, most often than not, we don't usually have these conversations, like on a day-to-day basis. And this is as far as the medical practitioners and how they handle grief. Because majority of the times when we go to a hospital, or maybe you have like a medic in your family, we usually look up to them for answers, all right? It's like the mini gods. That is where we have put them, because we expect them to have all the answers. We do not expect them to ever get sick. And when they lose their patients or even their family members, most of the time we don't usually understand how this impacts them. So that is what we want to have a conversation around today. And of course, to help us with that conversation, we have Dr. Ahmed Soroya, who's a general practitioner at Aga Khan University Hospital. Good to have you this morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. I am well, thank you. And of course, we also have Anne Degwa, critical care nurse at Aga Khan University Hospital. Good to have you as well. Thank you so much for sparing your time. And of course, joining us via Zoom is Nyambura Gadhumbi, who is a psychotherapist. And of course, she's not so new. If you, have joined us on this journey all along, you probably know her. So Nyambura, I don't know if you can hear me. It's good to have you and to see you this morning.
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Perfect. All right. We can hear you as well and see you as well. Thank you so much for joining us as well. But of course, before we get on to the conversation, let's just remind you about an ongoing campaign that we all should be part of. All right. And of course, children all around Kenya rely on water from unsafe sources. And Colgate is asking you to help change this. So just a little water can make a big difference. And for every pack of Colgate that you buy, exclusively at Naivas, you help us build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 Kenyans. So give a helping hand, shop at your nearest Naivas store or online at naivas.co.ke. And for more information about the campaign, go to Colgate Kenya's Facebook page or wellboring/colgate.com for more information. And as always, terms and conditions apply. But let's come back to our conversation this morning. And like I said, majority of the times we have really, really high expectations when it comes to medical practitioners, but most of the time we don't really understand how some instances, and of course one of them being grief and the loss of their patients, can have huge impact on them. So how is it from their side? Let's get to hear from them. And of course, Dr. Ahmed, allow me to start with you. Just take us through your day. Like, we start with the basics, right? Being a general practitioner, what exactly, does your job entail? And of course, take us through the intensity. What does a good day look like? What does a bad day look like for you?
All right, so I primarily practice at the emergency department of the Accident and Emergency of Aga Khan University Hospital.
All right, okay.
So we normally have, our day typically starts at 7 a.m.
All right.
All right, we receive the handover from the previous night's shifts. Any patients within the unit, we are handed over to them, and then we can start the day. Okay. So we typically see all the walk-ins and all the emergency patients brought in by the ambulances. And we also respond to in-house calls for code blues, which is like the resuscitations. Yeah. So we deal with all kinds of patients, from minor cuts to major trauma, polytrauma, head injury, you name it. We see everything there,
Yeah. And of course, this happens like on a daily basis.
On a regular basis. There's no time.
Yeah. And even those days where you're supposed to be off,
yes,
you are sort of like on call.
We can actually get called on, especially when you're dealing with mass casualties. Example being like the Westgate attack. No matter where you are, you got to show up.
And even during COVID-19, right?
COVID was a big challenge, yes.
Yeah, it was a big challenge for all the medical practitioners as well. And we never say thank you enough, I think, to all the medics. I think it's never enough to just say, thank you, and really understand the intensity, of your job and what is expected of you. And for you as well, critical care nurse. What exactly, does that entail? What are some of the expectations, as far as your job is concerned? Good day, bad day, what do they look like?
Okay, for a critical care setting, I wouldn't really say there is a good day.
Okay.
Reason being, all our patients are critically ill. That's why they're in critical care. Our shifts usually start at 7:30, end at 7:30. It's usually a 12-hour shift.
Okay.
And all our patients are quite sick. Though there are days which are harder than others, because you find you might have several patients who are very unstable. We are also expecting admissions from the emergency department, from general wards or the normal wards. And you don't know what kind of patient you're expecting to receive. But basically we deal with very sick patients, very emotionally intense situations, because remember, a patient is not a patient alone. They have their families, they have their friends, they have their loved ones, and you have to deal with them in these emotionally intense situations. You are the professional, you're expected to offer the professional care required, but also at the same time you're supposed to offer the emotional support, the psychological support. You're expected to give it all. Yeah.
You're supposed to be like everything.
Yes,
for these patients. And sometimes we tend to forget that medical practitioners are human. Okay,
Exactly.
we sort of like tend to you know, we separate the two. We separate a doctor, we separate a critical care nurse, or any other medical practice. We separate them from being human, which sometimes is wrong, because we expect all the answers that we need. We expect you to make sure that you treat our patients and make sure that they are okay and all those things. And sometimes some situations are above and beyond your control. We'll come back to you. I was listening to one lady's story, and she was talking about how she remembers her first death. And you never forget. It never leaves you. Of course, it impacts you very, very immensely. And of course, I'd also want to hear from you, because again, we're focusing today on how then do medics, you know, deal with grief. And this could be either internal or external as well. So I'll come back to you to understand that. But Nyambura, just first of all, just understanding the intensity of, you know, the jobs that medical practitioners, first of all, have to, you know, face on a day-to-day basis. Could you just take us through how this, first of all, impacts them? Forget, you know, the fact that they might actually experience death or they might lose a patient, but just the fact that they are medical practitioners. How much of a toll can this take on their mental health and even physical well-being as well?
Oh, it's tremendous. It's huge, because there is a certain element of emotional connectedness between a doctor, a nurse, any kind of medical health caregiver, and that takes a toll on them emotionally, because they're doing their best. They're trying their best to ensure that this person not only receives the proper care that they get, but they also get healed. So you can imagine if, I mean, the doctors there have been taking care of a patient, and then all of a sudden the patient passes away without any kind of explanation. That is what we call acute grief. And then the most oddest thing that the caregiver or the health professional needs to do is to quickly put that like in the past, and then quickly turn on to the people who need extra care for them. And that's humanly impossible sometimes. It does take a toll emotionally, mentally.
All right. And of course, again, like I'd say, this lady said, first of all, nobody prepares you for this. And I'm also curious to understand from you, like, are you prepared for this, you know, eventualities during training, or this is something that you just deal with when you get, you know, to work? And how does that also, you know, impact you? But even before that, can we just understand if you have ever encountered, because again, like you said, you work at the emergency, you know, care, and we all know how critical that is, and as well as you as well. But for you, have you ever like encountered, and what was that like your first loss of a patient?
So normally in the emergency department, we normally have patients who come in either acutely, who basically are almost what we call pre-arrest, the ones who are gasping for air, and we have to revive them. Those are primarily most of the patients which we actually resuscitate or maybe lose. Sometimes we get them back. All right. So so in the acute settings, those are primarily our patients. Anne, on the other hand, deals with those patients where she provides long-term care because she works in ICU, and sometimes the patients don't make it. So with us, primarily on a normal day, you'd maybe receive an ambulance, receive a polytrauma patient. And what normally happens, we have a team, a trauma team, like an example I'll give you for this one. We have a trauma team that would arrive and would start resuscitating this patient.
Yeah.
Okay? Once the resuscitation is done, if the patient makes it, he's transferred to ICU. Okay. If the patient doesn't make it now, we have a meeting. Immediately after the resuscitation, we have a meeting. It's called a debriefing, whereby all the team players involved, we sit down and we discuss that, was this something we did wrong?
Okay.
Would anything have changed the outcome of this? All right. Once that we discuss, we also discuss amongst each other, how are you, like, are you okay? Because everyone is in a different phase of life.
Yeah.
You may have the nurse who have worked with, lost her husband last week to an accident, and that event has actually triggered her to go into an emotional state.
Okay.
So after that, now we approach the patient. Now, this is called as breaking the bad news.
Yeah.
This is what we're trained for. To break the bad news is what we're actually trained for regularly. But us personally, we're not trained for. We just learn it on the job.
I mean, yes. Yeah. And I don't want to imagine, like, because every single time this happens, you know, there's that patient's family, and they look up to you for good news. We don't want bad news. We usually look up to you for good news. So when they see you coming to them, and then you come and tell them, because this statement that we all know, we tried everything that we could, but the patient did not make it. One of the most difficult statements. I want to believe that you have to. So you're sort of like trained, but you're not trained. And it never gets easier, does it?
It never. The word easy doesn't imply here.
Okay.
We just learn how to put in the patient's clinical aspect before emotions. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I still want to hear from you the first time you lost a patient. What was that like for you?
My first time I lost a patient was during my early training, during my internship, not where I was working. And that time I just graduated. So I was working at the Kiambu Hospital. He was actually a pediatric patient.
Okay. Oh no.
And it's sad, but our services and resources are limited out in the districts. There's so many interventions that you could do as a doctor, but you can't.
Okay.
So most of the times you just have to watch. Like this, you have a baby who is severely dehydrated. All right. There is a very difficult aspect of getting a central line in, because when they're severely dehydrated, you can't find the peripheral lines, and that's not available there. So you just put an intraosseous line which goes into the bone, which you have 8 hours. After that, you need to get a good line, which most of the times we were unable to. So it was very difficult, because every hour the mother would come to you seeking, like as you said, we have many gods. The mother would come to you that, Daktari, please save my child. But you have done all you could within this resource-limited setting. And referrals is also another challenge out there. So medicine out there is totally different, and it takes a big impact. I still remember that particular kid, once he passed away, there was nothing much we could do about it. Okay, we did whatever we could, and the mother would keep on coming. And just for her sake, we would keep going and look like we're doing things. But we know as medical practitioners that there's nothing much we're achieving here. And that takes a big toll on us, as we can't just play it. And once that kid passed, like, I couldn't see a patient for the next 1 to 2 hours. I needed to take a break, sit out, go meet my colleagues, discuss with them, and they would have the same story. So it takes a toll, especially the first, but I would not say get used to it. You just focus more on your clinical aspects, because if emotions get your better half, you'll not be able to give the best to your patient.
No, absolutely. I mean, you're human at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Because, like I said, sometimes we, you know, as people, as general population, look up to you, you know, as medical practitioners for all the answers and all the hope that we can get. So when that does not happen, I can only imagine what that is like for you. Is it different for you? Because, again, like you said, majority of the times you deal with a lot of patients who are, you know, long-term, sort of. Maybe I want to imagine some of them, you know, have like terminal illnesses, diseases, I want to imagine. And of course, you can see this, you know, happen. Sometimes maybe you know that this person might not make it. So how is it for you? Do you remember the first time you lost a patient, and what was that like for you?
Yes, I do remember vividly. Actually, I was doing my internship in Nakuru PGH. A 48-year-old lady, I don't even remember the details, was in a medical ward, and it was one of those you would call unexpected deaths. She was not terminally ill. She had just come in, and within about 3 hours of admission, we lost her.
Oh, no.
And I remember we had not even had a chance to talk to the relatives. They had not seen her from the moment they had brought her. Okay. And the next thing you are doing, you are calling them to tell them, unfortunately, this has happened. I still remember her face, so the first experience is quite hard, and I'm sure this is hard even for my other colleagues elsewhere. The first one is very hard, very difficult to remember. Then as you continue, I wouldn't say it gets easy. It will never be easy, because again, death can, as Dr. has said, can be expected or unexpected.
That's true.
For patients who are terminally ill, you've walked the journey with them, you've walked with the family has gotten a chance to say their goodbyes and also to grieve. And all of you are have come to a consensus or an agreement, though not verbally, you know, not verbally or formally, informally. Like everyone is in an agreement that this is the eventuality, this is where we are heading
this is what is going to happen.
So for that type of death or loss, sometimes it's easier. Then there is this unexpected one. A patient has come from the emergency department, has just been settled probably for 2 hours, coming to our department, then you lose that patient. And most of the times, the unexpected deaths are from accidents, from, you know, infections, you know, the sudden ones. So for the unexpected ones, it's never easy. You've not gotten a chance to even give your all or to give your best. You've not had time to really attend to this patient. So you can't say that at any point in the work life that it gets easier. Then also there are patients whom have been in the hospital several admissions, or they have stayed in the hospital for a period of time. So somehow you've formed a bond, or you formed a stronger relationship with the patient and with the relatives. So it becomes very difficult. So you can't say that it becomes
you sort
easier.
of like get used to it at some point.
No, you can't get used to it. And as the doctor had alluded, sometimes you're also coming from your own personal experiences. We have families, we have friends, we have loved ones. Probably you've lost a relative or a loved one or a friend through the same manner, the same probably disease picture. So you are seeing this and it's re-triggering what you went through.
And of course I'll come back to you then, you know, both of you to really understand. So then what happens? Because yes, you go through medical school, years and years of medical school, but at the same time, you're never prepared. Yes, you'll be told at some point, maybe you might lose a patient, you know, maybe either immediate or, you know, someone maybe has a terminal illness. But until you get to that point, you are never prepared for the same. Yes, you have the information, but then at that point, you will not know, you know, how to deal with your emotions. I mean, you talked about the fact that you could not see another patient for like an hour or two. I wonder what you did, you know, when you lost your first patient. What happened to you? What did you do?
Yeah, what mostly we do, or what I did in that scenario.
Yeah, in that instance where you lost your first patient.
Normally, in all scenarios, there is something we call debrief, as Dr. Ahmed had said, and this is a requirement. You converge as the group, you discuss what you did well, were there any gaps, were there a different path you would have followed for a different outcome. Once you do that, that's a formal, you know, it's a formal setup kind of. It has to be done for all patients. Then after that, you can even do peer support. You can go to a colleague of yours who probably senior than you, and who can give you an objective insight. What did they do when they encountered such? Because someone who is senior than you, of course, has gone through several of these. What did they do when they encountered that? And also you can even go to someone who is closer to you, because at the workplace you also somehow form friends. You can actually even go and vent to them. This is what I'm feeling. And we've also learned to be a shoulder for each other. So that if Dr. Ahmed is coming to me and is telling me, and this is what I'm feeling, I'll offer that hearing ear without giving my own opinion, or this is what I felt. You just listen to them and have them vent that out.
Because it's never easy for any single person. And Nyambura, again, just being in that environment, first of all, might be difficult, you know, for any person. And the fact that we have a lot of expectations, you know, towards the healthcare professionals. Could you just help us understand this amount of pressure? first of all, external, and even internally for them to first of all offer the best and try as much as possible and preserve this life. But then when that doesn't happen, of course it takes a toll on them. And of course they also mentioned the expected versus unexpected death, which again is pretty tough for everyone.
Right. So internally, it's almost like if I would say double pressure, because there's the internal pressure from themselves or expected, where they just really want to do the best that they can do for that particular doctor, for that particular patient, as Dr. Ali had mentioned earlier on, in terms of him really not being able to do anything to resuscitate this young child, you know. So there's that pressure of, have I done my best? Yes, I did, but maybe could I have done this? Could I have done that? Not putting blame on anybody, but you can understand from a human point of view, that's really, really difficult for anybody. And then internally, also as a hospital, because they're employees within a specific hospital, there is that need of wanting the hospital to do their best for their patients every time they come. So the pressure is multi-layered. But what I like that Anne said, and I think even Dr. said that makes sense in the grieving process, is that community support, that peer support is very, very important, because even in familial settings, when we've lost somebody, we get quote unquote a better healing trajectory when we have people surrounding us. So that peer support is so instrumental for them, twofold: one, to help them deal with the emotional aspect, but two, to also help them understand what coping and adaptive behaviors can be able to pick up in case a certain case like this comes up. And then let's not even talk about the pressure on the body. The long hours that the medical practitioners have to put in, the attention to detail, and all this, they're still struggling and trying to cope with certain mishaps like acute death. Acute death is what Anne had mentioned earlier on, when you just admit a patient and then she dies. It's so confusing for the mind, because it's like, I didn't even get a chance to do anything, And that is in itself is an emotional process, separate from, as she was saying, that expected death of somebody maybe who is ailing over a long period of time. It's pressure everywhere. And I just want to commend Anne and Dr. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. Even just being here, it's encouraging to see you guys. It is not an easy situation to deal with.
Really, yeah, absolutely. And just coming to talk about it as well, so that people really understand, how much of a toll this can take. I think we really, really appreciate you both really for coming by today. So let's take a break. But when we come back, we'd want to understand, so does this, first of all, the environment in itself, because it's too much pressure, there's a lot of expectations, there's a lot of happening. Sometimes you work in like difficult working conditions, human resource sometimes is not enough, it's a lot of things. But on top of that, you also have to deal with the fact that, sometimes you might lose a patient. So does this affect other aspects of your life? Do you find yourself sometimes taking it out on your families? Do you find yourself taking it out on your, your friends? And if that is the case, then, what happens? And then one of those doctors, again, I was listening to their story, said, you sort of sometimes become numb to death. So I don't know if that is the case for you guys, but of course we'll want to understand that after the break. But before we go on a break, a quick reminder about the ongoing campaign by Colgate. And Kenya, what if we told you that your smile can help those next to you? Well, Colgate is helping to provide clean drinking water so that our children can have a bright future, and that is by staying in school. So for every pack of Colgate that you buy at your nearest Naivas store over the next 2 months, you are helping to build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 people. Now that is something to smile about. So what you need to do is visit the Colgate Kenya Facebook page, or visit the website on wellboring/colgate.com for more information. And remember, terms and conditions apply. See you after the break.
God is looking at you. He's seeing a millionaire. He's seeing a president. He's seeing a businessman.
Join us for a mega supernatural restoration crusade at the Tononoka grounds from 20th to 23rd July starting 2 p.m.
As a mother, I have to do my duties in the house. It forces me to send her to the river because I have no alternative.
Pia ora ok ber, ler bedo ko ler. Otuo nikech pia ora. Otuo ok odhi skul japuonj chunye chandore.
If children had water close by, they won't be sick, they won't be distracted because the water is clean.
The Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, NUPEA, is a state corporation under the Ministry of Energy mandated with the development of nuclear power program for electricity generation in Kenya, carrying out research and development of energy technologies and capacity building for the energy sector. To this end, NUPEA coordinates all relevant nuclear infrastructure in the country. For more information, log on to our website and follow us on our social media handles.
With Glovo, unaweza order chochote na ukipata, una celebrate na body yako yote. Because your tasty grilled chicken ikifika, weekend inaanza. Ingredients are your favorite recipe just in time. Na wakati keki inafika ndio sherehe inaanza. Because to get anything on Glovo deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything unataka na we track minute by minute mpaka ikufikie. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
Have you found your purpose yet?
Well, catch the conversation this Sunday as we discuss matters of resilience and finding purpose.
Joining us in studio will be the legendary BMF, Boss Emoji, and of course music from yours truly, Son of Nations.
Save the date and let's meet this Sunday from 11:30 to 1 p.m. only on NTV.
And this is
You're throwing money down the drain.
How? On this cleaning product? Impossible.
Harpic 10X. While other cleaners flow away, Harpic 10X's viscous formula in only one round of application gives you sparkling, clean toilet.
Harpic, 10 times better cleaning than other cleaning products.
And great savings too.
You are watching Your World in association with Colgate.
I see that. All right, welcome back. Glad you're still with us. Of course, the conversation still continues during the break, and it's good to have you this morning. And we're having a very important conversation that, honestly, I think we should talk about this almost always in our friends, group, WhatsApp groups and all those things, but also most importantly, offer as much support as we can to the medical practitioners because they want to focus, or we're focusing on how they deal with grief. And this could be, again, like we said, internal, something happens within their family, or even when they lose their patient, and how much of an impact that has on their lives. But again, before we continue with the conversation, again, a reminder, vote a campaign by Colgate, and that is when a child has to help their family fetch water. There is no such thing as a day off. So you can help us change that. And Colgate is asking you to help, and this is support the future of our country, and that is of our children as well. So just like clean water, every little drops make a difference. So for every pack of Colgate that you buy at your nearest Naivas store, you are helping to build 30 water wells that will provide clean water to 120,000 Kenyans. So you can make a larger impact and help us to reach more Kenyans by donating via M-Pesa. And visit the Colgate Kenya Facebook page or wellboring.colgate.com, our website, for more information. And remember, terms and conditions apply. So, Dr. Ahmed, again, like I'll keep making referral to a story that, again, I had because I really needed to understand what this is like. First of all, just being a medical practitioner in itself, but also, you know, handling the difficult situations. And one of them is losing a patient. And she said for her, she has to sort of like compartmentalize. It's like she sort of like separated her brain in different ways, that sometimes she can take this bad news of her day and sort of like store it in a certain part of her brain. She will not forget about it, but that sort of like helps her to deal with this loss of a patient, right? So I don't know for you, yes, we talked about debriefing and all those things, but then, so then what do you do? Who do you talk to? What kind of support would you say as an individual you need during this difficult times?
So working in the emergency department, normally we have a counseling department. We have Dr. Merali, who is our in-house counselor, and psychologist. So basically, it has to be like a self-initiative. One needs to know when they're not well. If you feel like this is taking a toll on you, you need to seek help.
All right.
Okay, but as men, you know how men are.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to be like the strong one.
They want to be the tough one. So what they do, they don't seek help. But in our hospital setting, we have the debriefing. All right. We have our peers. We have our senior managers, and we also have our counselors. All right. We have a walk-in door policy. You can walk in anytime, access them, talk to them, see how you feel. If they feel there's a need for a follow-up, you'll be booked in for a follow-up. But as you said, we do take this home all the time. All right. Most of the times, I would go and tell my wife that, you know, this is what happened. She'd be like, "Come on." This is what you talk about. And
so then they end up carrying that.
We actually take the baggage home. And even with my friends, when we're going out, if I meet another colleague, doctor's topic starts, and the rest of them just walk off away from us.
No, I can totally understand, because again, having to do this like almost on a daily basis, and God forbid that you lose a patient maybe like 3 or 4 times. I mean, in a week, that's not good even for you. But I would understand why sometimes people will be like, it's like sad stories.
Sad stories is not emotionally
almost,
attached,
right?
doesn't feel my emotion. That
Do you feel like sometimes you sort of like develop dark humor?
It does. Like, I'll give you a very funny story.
I
was just from a night shift. I had a polytrauma patient. Very bloody, chest tubes. We didn't manage reviving him. I went home and my wife was cooking for me, and she happened to burn her hand a bit. Now, I'm in that state of mind that, man, I lost a patient, we did a lot. And she was like, ouch, my hand is hurting. And I would look at her and like, don't worry, you'll be fine, just run it in some water. And she would be like, where's the empathy gone?
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that happens quite a bit, but we grow into it.
All right. Does that help, like the debriefing, and to what extent does it help? Because I want to imagine, you see, if it was like a one-time thing where you're separated from that environment, that will help like the healing and coping and all those things faster. But now you are in this environment almost
all the time.
On on a daily basis. So I'm just trying to figure out all these avenues that you get for help. To what extent would you say it really helps?
So definitely it takes the burden off you, all right? And you also get to hear the other part. And the other thing is that like after this process, whatever happens, actually when patients come to you and like, thank you, you're the only one who I can see who can do this. So there's also that incentive, that aspect of life where people see you as the only one who can provide certain care. So that helps you build up and set your mentality. And of course, emotions impair your clinical judgment. You have to take control of them.
At the end of the day. All right. Anne, for you, do you find that sometimes you take it on your family, you know, because again, and especially for you, because you want to understand, sometimes you get to bond, you know, with your patients, you get to know their family, you just get to know more about them, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're no more. Of course, this will impact you immensely. But again, so how do you deal with that? Who do you talk to? Do you find yourself taking it out on your family as well? Does it impact all these other areas of your life that is not your professional?
Yes, we have to appreciate that grief and loss are demanding and they are challenging.
Yeah.
And also when you also even look at studies which have been done, patient loss is actually, I think, top 3 in leading cause of burnout. So the more you're exposed to these losses, you get more burned out and you start getting agitated. You get angry easily. Sometimes you don't even reason objectively. Good thing, over time you're able to actually assess yourself. There's that time you can even openly tell people, I feel very irritable today. I'm feeling agitated. And sometimes also your colleagues will help to tell you, today you are not your normal self.
Yeah.
Good thing, once this has been pointed out to you, you are able to, like, you know, go back inside yourself and have some, and do, you know, what we call compassion, self-compassion.
Yeah.
You are graceful to yourself that despite all these losses, there's something else I've done well.
Yeah.
And also you can practice it in such a way that you can think of someone who is dear to you. You just assume they're in your position. What would you tell them? You can actually even write it on paper and read it loudly to yourself, because unfortunately, as much as we are healthcare workers, we are also mothers, we are sisters, we are wives. You would not want to take these home. But
sometimes you don't have a choice.
But also don't have a choice.
But let's bedtime stories.
Yeah, but good thing, by being a lady, somewhat favors us, because I can go and vent to my husband, and that will cushion the children.
Yeah.
And also I've found that also you identify someone, a friend or someone in a family who really listens.
Yeah.
But husbands or spouses, by default, they have to listen. Sometimes they don't even understand what they are saying, but they have to. They have to listen. Though I agree with you, sometimes it gets out of control, and you find that it's reaching your family, which should not be happening, but that sometimes it does happen. Yeah. But the self-compassion really works.
It's
because despite this loss, there's something you've done well. There's something good you've done, and there are things which are outside your control.
I see that.
Yes.
I see that. All right, Nyambura, so then coping for all medical practitioners as well, what exactly does that look like? What are some of these avenues that would be really, really helpful? And for us as a people, either their friends, their family members, you know, in their support group, what kind of support, you know, do we as a people need to offer to the medics as well to just help them when in their line of duty, that is?
Right. So first of all, I really like what Anne said in terms of the compassion. Compassion is very important for Daktari and even Anne, anyone who's in the healthcare environment, because caregiving is emotionally exhausting. You're giving and you're giving and you're giving. And so you can imagine when you give and then there's death or acute loss immediately, it really does drain you more. And of course, as she mentioned in terms of the burnout is first emotional and then it becomes physical, where someone is admitted because, well, immunity is compromised and all that stuff. We don't want to get there.
Yeah.
So what they're already doing is so important and so fundamental, because there's already one debriefing.
Yeah.
I don't know if the debriefing allows the space for them to actually express their emotional state immediately after the trauma, which is sometimes can be death, sometimes can be some pretty gory images that even you and I can never possibly be exposed to.
True.
So one, that briefing for their family members, but answering your question for us, and I know this is difficult because when we bring our loved ones into hospital, the doctor is that first contact of hope. Because we're in such high emotional and physical distress, there's a hope that this person will take away what I'm feeling by making my loved one better. So I guess it's just, if possible, extending the understanding that even they are human beings, but still holding in high regard that they will do their best.
Yeah. Put a bit of trust. Yeah,
to some level of trust, and maybe even affirmation that I am in distress, I'm hurt, but I also know you're doing your best. Because if I asked Anne and Dr. Ahmed why they do what they do, and I hope they get to answer that, it's possibly because the patients who come back and say thank you, but also just being able to impact one patient, which is a family, which then becomes a community. So for us to offer empathy to them. If you have a sister, if you have a brother who is a doctor, it's not my family member is a doctor, so we get free treatment. No, it's okay. Can we check up on them maybe like a Monday or a Tuesday or anything? But for Anne and Dr. Ahmed is, if possible, take a minute per hour, if possible, or 5 minutes per hour, to just really check in on yourself and find out what's going on internally. Am I in high anxiety? Am I feeling that there's high pressure? And in those 1 to 5 minutes, maybe listen to a song, maybe enjoy a glass of water, just be intentional in the moment, and you will find that that gives you reprieve from all these other pressures. Because being a healthcare practitioner, it's a daunting task.
It really
as
is,
high minute by minute by minute.
And you're constantly exposed to this environment. On a day-to-day basis. Okay, all right, enjoy a glass of water. Sometimes that helps. Have you ever had patients who take it out on you? You know, you go to them and say, hey, listen, we have tried everything that we could, but we were not able to, you know, help your patient. Do you have you ever experienced
it happens,
like that?
but we've been trained how to counter this.
All right.
I can give you an example. So basically, if you've had a patient, you've tried to resuscitate, the patient has not made it. There are certain things you need to ensure before you pass on the message.
Okay.
Number one, you need to be accompanied. You should not go alone.
All right.
Okay. Number two, you need to isolate the next of kin from the rest of the relatives. Preferably in a private area. Ask them to have a sit. Give them a glass of water. Number three, you need to ask them, what do they know about the patient? You want to know how much of an insight do they have of the patient's current condition. Okay. So that really poses you as to set up your breaking of the bad news. Then the news is broken down in bits and pieces. Okay?
Okay.
And the choice of words is very important.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you can't just go and say, he's gone.
Yeah.
Okay? You're going to have to walk in and say, like, we tried our best, and I wish things turned out otherwise, but unfortunately, we were not able to revive him. And then you comfort them, you offer them support, you can get the counselor, you advise them on seeking help from the elders, spiritually, and even through the hospital counseling.
Because it can be a difficult moment, even for the family members, first of all, to try and process everything that you're saying. And sometimes people can tell, based on how you come to them, people can tell whether this is going to be good news or bad news. So it's difficult for the family to try and process everything that you're saying. So again, it's important to understand where they are at and offer, you know, what you're saying, the correct way of delivering this bad news. But even still, for you, you know, having to deal with the fact that you're going to deliver bad news, do you like have a moment you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to say, this is the approach, and then when you get there and you see the family members and you completely forget, you know, yourself and who you are, and you know, so because then you're getting into the emotions of those family members. Do you sometimes experience that?
Yeah. In an ideal setting, it would flow as Dr. Ahmed has said, but sometimes you find that it plays out differently.
Okay.
You might prepare, this is what will tell the relatives, because as he has said, you never break the news alone. You have to be accompanied and in a private place.
Okay.
But sometimes you might, as you just start introducing yourselves, you are so and so, because you are taking care of your patient, they get violent. We've had instances where the relatives get violent, and that's why we encourage never do it in a closed, you know, in a closed room. And if it's in a closed room, make sure that they are seated on the farthest end of the room and you are near the door, because sometimes it gets violent. In such scenarios, you have to leave the room, and also you can actually even involve more people to calm them down, give them time to calm down before you can break the news again. You can try a different person, or the same people, but after you've given them some time to internalize. Then sometimes you might also go prepared, and you've planned this, what you're going to tell them. Then also the reaction from them also emotionally gets to you. And you find that you're supposed to be emotionally resilient, yet you feel like you're even breaking more than the relatives. Yeah, so there's no ideal setting per se. There's what is written in books, but in real life sometimes it plays out differently.
Like they say, kwa ground.
Yeah, kwa ground.
They're different. Okay, I hear that. I hear that. So then what do you do? And this is the thing, because before we went on a break, there was that question that I was going to ask, and that is, do you then find yourself becoming numb to death? Because you see this, I would say, more frequently than any other person, right? Because the majority of the times, most of the deaths that occur would be in hospital. Others will be like road accidents and all those things. So do you sort of like sometimes become numb to death? Because like I said, you never get used to it, but you know, you experience them more frequently.
It basically, you become desensitized.
Okay.
All right. Your first death and the last one is totally different.
Yeah.
And of course, the death is a death, but it's just you as a practitioner, you learn how to hold your emotions back.
Yeah.
And the layman would say getting numb. Getting numb to it, basically. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Anne?
Yeah, I would say you get desensitized or you get numb, so to use the word. Yeah, because at the end of it all, you have other patients who are still waiting for your care. So, so you're expected to be emotionally resilient. You're expected to offer that empathetic care, whereby you put yourself into their shoes, try to even feel to understand what they're feeling, but you're not expected to wallow in pity, in tears and all that. So somehow you become numb. But along the work life, there's that death, which will remind you that you are still a human being. You are not desensitized as you would think you are.
All right.
But you're expected to, because there are also other patients waiting for you.
I mean, an example that I give you of this OBGYN. So you're going to deliver bad news to this family, but at the same time, there's another patient that is waiting for you to go and deliver, a baby for them. So it's like, you have to separate like these two instances, but at the same time, it's one person who's dealing with, all these instances. Okay. So Nyambura, again, do we have a lot of medical practitioners who maybe are more at risk? I don't think almost all of them, who are more at risk of developing like mental health conditions. We're talking about PTSD, for example. So does the fact that they are in that environment put them at a higher risk of developing some of these mental, health conditions?
What I've come to see, and certain studies have shown, because if you try and compare in terms of emotional intensity, would be military personnel and medical personnel, because every other time they're in a highly threatening environment. As Anne was saying, there's emotional resilience that is needed then. So PTSD, and I'll be very careful to diagnose a patient who I haven't, looked out and check out the diagnosis criteria. PTSD, based on studies and observable patterns, shows that it occurs after the course of the career.
Okay.
Because at that particular point, I don't need to desensitize or disassociate my emotion, because I'm no longer practicing. So I'm no longer seeing, broken bones or torn flesh, or I'm no longer in contact every other time. So then the nervous system, quote unquote, is no longer hypervigilance. And so when you come out of a threatening environment, that's when your body now starts going back into its homeostasis, which is now almost like a revivation of your emotional experience at that particular time. So maybe that will come after, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It's just the way our bodies have been wired to, because compartmentalization only works until a specific time.
What about like cases of depression, or severe depression maybe?
I wouldn't say it's as rampant in the medical. It's a case by case, to be honest.
Okay, all right. Case
because the thing is, we are looking at also individual susceptibility of depression. There are doctors who have very high emotional resilience based on how they grew up and what they were brought up during. There are those who don't have. So say that most doctors go into depression or most nurses go into depression would not be so accurate. However, I guess the million-dollar question would be, how do they cope outside of work? At work, there's the debriefing, there's the expression, there's the peer, there's the peer-to-peer support. But when you go home and maybe when you're on leave, quote unquote, what are you doing? Is there an increased use of substance use at that particular time because you're not practicing? Have your sleep, the circadian rhythm, has that been disrupted? And if so, what are the effects thereafter? So maybe we look at the individual outside of their practicing environment. Perhaps there are trends to indicate that there's high susceptibility of certain psychological illnesses like mood disorders, like depression and other things.
All right. Okay. Plus so many other factors come to play. Okay. So then what you guys do, very curious, Anne. So what do you do outside work when you're on leave? Although even when you're on leave, you're sort of almost on call. But what do you do? Very quickly, because I can see our time is far much better. Then, of course, we'd want to understand, you know, what is it that you'll tell, you know, students, first of all, right, who are still in school. Yes, wanafunzwa all these things. But then again, when they get to the work environment, things are different. But first things first, what do you do? Aside from telling your husband and your family and all those things, what do you do just to make sure that you sort of like debrief?
So outside the work, I try to disassociate completely from work, and I do a totally different activities.
Okay.
I love farming.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, because that's totally different from the human well-being field completely, where you deal with plants. I love gardening. I actually plant a lot of flowers. So at least that way, I'm off anything work.
All right.
And I try as much as possible not to follow up on what is happening at work.
Okay.
So that when I'm going back, I'm totally refreshed and all that.
Okay.
Yes. Then also try to keep friends who are not medics.
Okay.
So that,
so that you don't talk medicine.
So that I don't talk anything.
I hear you. But listen, I mean, it's a good thing that you have friends who are not medics. But again, being surrounded by medics almost all the time, sometimes you find that most of your friends are medics. But yeah, it's a good thing. I like that. All right. Dr. Ahmed, what do you do?
I'm a family guy. I love my family. I have a 1-year-old.
Oh,
so I love spending time with him.
Yeah.
And apart from that, I love cars as well. So long drives to the beach side, that's my thing,
Okay. Do you know sometimes, I mean, I'm just from leave, but sometimes it's difficult to separate the two. Like sometimes I'd find myself, okay, I want to follow up, oh, what is happening and all those things. So, I mean, but you have to do what you have to do at the end of the day to just, you know, get out of that environment, to relax and all those things. Okay, so what advice would you give to, you know, those who are still in school, want to come into this field, or maybe someone is watching you this morning and thinking, hey, I want to be a doctor as well. What is it that they need to know?
Let me add the doctors as well to this.
Yes.
So secondary trauma is real. Functional depression is real. Recognize the signs early. Seek help. There's nothing wrong in seeking help.
Okay.
And continue the good work you do. That's my take-home message.
Okay. I like that. All right. Anne?
Yeah. What I'll tell my colleagues out there is that it's okay to look for help.
Okay.
And no one is an island. If you feel you're getting this burnout, you're feeling overwhelmed, talk to someone. They are professional therapists. You can be sent by them. Talk to your colleagues. Don't carry everything on your shoulders. And we are doing a good job because this work has to be done by someone at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I like that. All right. And Nyambura, you know, your advice to medical practitioners and even us as a people, all right, who have high expectations, you know, on medics, what is it that you would say to them?
I think just to allow themselves to grieve. Okay. And grieving does not mean that they didn't do their best. It just is allowing your body to do what your body was created to do. Grieving is 100% emotional experience. And so if you don't allow yourself to grieve, those emotions are actually pent up in your body, and that can translate to diseases. So allowing yourself to grieve would be selecting a professional therapist, as Anne has said, who can take you through the grieving process. If you're not able to, there are many resources that can guide you on selected grieving time, where you actually say every day at this particular time, I'm just going to think of all the things that I have lost, all the patients that I've lost, and I'm just going to cry about that. No shame, no guilt, nothing. Grieving, because life is loss, grieving is the process that follows loss. So please allow yourself to grieve. It's okay. It's okay for you to deal with the same, because again, like we said, at the end of the day, I think we all need to remember that medics are humans. I think that is what we need to do. Nyambura Gazumbe, psychotherapist, joining us via Zoom this morning. Thank you so much for your insights. And Dengo critical care nurse at Aga Khan University Hospital, and Dr. Ahmed Saroya, who is a general practitioner from Aga Khan University Hospital. Thank you so much for really, first of all, coming by today and just taking us through what exactly it is like being a medic and how you handle, cases as far as grief is concerned. So thank you so much. You're doing a good job. Let's just say that. And keep up the good job that you are doing. Appreciate your time this morning. And thank you for staying with us until the end of the show. Now you know better, and let's offer as much support as we can to the medics. Let's remember they are human, and support them in all the ways that we can. Don't just be excited. Sisi tuko na daktari kwa familia. No. Check in on them, like Nyambura said, once in a while. All right, so allow us to say goodbye. My name is Winnie Lubembe, but before we go, a quick reminder about an ongoing campaign by Colgate, where children all around Kenya rely on water from unsafe sources. So Colgate is asking you to help change this, and just a little water can make a very big difference. So for every pack of Colgate that you buy exclusively at Naivas, you help us build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 Kenyans. So give a helping hand. Shop at your nearest Naivas store or online at naivas.co.ke. And for more information about the campaign, go to Colgate Kenya's Facebook page or wellboring/colgate.com. And remember, terms and conditions apply. So be safe today, because like we all know, mandamano it's gonna happen today. So please stay safe wherever you are. And of course, I'm gonna pave way for Olive Barrows to give us all the updates that we need to know as far as the planned public protest. But stay safe and God bless. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye for now.